Yo, what up, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another game preview. We are previewing game one of the New York Knicks facing off against the familiar foe from last season for many years, man. The Indiana Pacers. You know, we got this rematch, especially after last season, losing to them in 7 on our home court. You know we're looking out for blood for this time around. And who better to help preview this game is none other than my guy, Evil Alex. No, I'm just kidding. Alex Golden from Setting the Pace podcast. Make sure to give him that follow. Hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already done so. Support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. Man, I'm excited for this one, and I got my guy here to break this thing down. You know, I enjoy talking to you, Alex. Not just because your name's Alex, but I feel like we always have great conversations about these two teams, man. But how are you doing? How are you feeling?
I mean, I'm doing great. Today, a year ago, the Pacers did defeat the New York Knicks in Game 7, as you mentioned. So, you know, just a nice reminder of where this series went last year after I didn't think it was going to happen. So, the fact that these two teams, though, are here in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm shocked. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that the Knicks getting past Boston, the way that they did, too, like, I'm not even going to count the Jason Tatum injury as a reason, like, why they got by them. I just think that them coming back from 2 20-point deficits in games 1 and games 2, one of the craziest things I've seen in a series in a while. So, you know, the Knicks, man, they just feel like they're living on cloud 9 and they're playing with house money right now. So, I mean, hey, I feel like both the Pacers and the Knicks are kind of in the same boat of like, wow, this is a kind of a shocking run to get to this point, especially with the foes they had to go against. And now here we are once again. And it feels like, what is it, the ninth time in NBA history that these two teams face each other in the playoffs? So it's going to be a fun one.
I mean, if you go back through the history of, like, especially for the Knicks perspective, you know, we've been talking about it's been 25 years since we made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Who was it 25 years ago that knocked us out? The Indiana Pacers. We lost to them 4-2. Who was it back in 2012, 2013 when we were in the second round looking to make that entrance back to the Eastern Conference Finals? Indiana Pacers. Last season, who was it that knocked us out in Game 7? It was the Indiana Pacers. Look, man, I talked about this on Knicks Weekly yesterday. We get another chance, another crack at this to take down the Indiana Pacers. And I want blood, man. After last season, you know, after watching the team just get decimated with injuries going into Game 7, of course, Knicks fans, even myself, we're feeling some sort of type of way, but it's going to be good, man. But to your point, you know, the Knicks are surging at the right time. I mean, look, I chose Knicks in 7, like with my heart, but there's a slight bit of like, can they do it, man? Because we've seen how they just failed against Boston during the regular season. I know we got Mitch, but how much will he actually impact this game, this series? And he impacted a lot, but nevertheless, it's just I'm impressed that they're even surging at the right time during the postseason. You know, it feels like going against Detroit, it got them a little bit more gritty, grizzled to fight the Celtics. And then the way they closed out in Game 6, I'm like, that's the basketball I've been waiting for. And if they're going to play like that against Indiana, you know, I have high hopes. But even for your team, man, Indiana, I mean, since January, you guys have just been on a roll. You've been steamrolling teams. You've been playing at a higher pace, which I never even thought that was even possible after how fast you guys play like last season, even this season. And your defense is actually looking much better than last season. But then watching, because I was tapped in, man. I was tapped in through the postseason. I'm like, all right, no Dame, but like you guys still made light work of the Milwaukee Bucks. Then you go against the Cavs, who, you know, everyone's talking about, it's gonna be Cavs and Celtics, and then you guys, even in that last game, you're down 19 points, come back to win, and it's like both these teams have an edge to them. And now we get the WWE matchup between Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton. This is good, man. This is like, a lot of people are like, oh, this is not what we want. I'm like, hell, what are you talking about? This is like a historic rivalry. This is what everyone wanted, man.
I think it's more intriguing because everybody that I've been listening to podcast-wise that I respect their opinions, it's been like, this just feels like a 50-50. And I feel like a lot of people are all over the board trying to figure out who they want to pick and why they want to pick them. I would say for most people that I've heard say the Pacers, they say Pacers in 6. If I hear them pick the Knicks, it's usually Knicks in 7. Mm-hmm. And so I just think, I mean, that's just what makes this series so intriguing. And you're right. Like the Pacers, they've been playing great basketball since January 1st. 4th best record in the league since that point. 42-16 record since that point. And they won both their series in 5 games. And if you look at the ones that they lost a game 3 in Milwaukee. I think they kind of got a little bit, too excited. Maybe they were just up 2-0, didn't really have as much focus. And then after the Bucks kind of went on their run, they come out and smash them in Game 4. That's obviously where Dame does tear his Achilles, which is just a bummer, obviously, early in that
Mhm.
game. But still, I don't think Dame was going to have that much of an impact because he just coming back from the blood clot stuff in his cap. Like that's just not fun to deal with. And so he just didn't look like he had it stamina wise, and the Pacers took advantage of that. But then, you fast forward to that Game 5 where they were down by 8 points with like 40 seconds left, and they win that game, and Tyrese Halliburton jumps on the table, and it's just like he's having his John Wall moment. And then you fast forward about a week later, and he's doing the same thing to the Cavaliers after being down 14 points going into the fourth quarter, have a huge comeback there, and then winning all 3 games on the road in Cleveland. To me, that was really impressive for them to close it out in Cleveland, being up 3 games to 1. It just kind of shows you maybe this team is a little bit more serious than we thought they were heading into this. And I think last year's run to the Eastern Conference Finals did give them a little bit more confidence and a little bit more, they're hungry, I should say, to prove that last year's run wasn't a fluke. And so I think some people might still put a little asterisk on it because
Mm.
the Cavaliers were a little bit banged up. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, Damian Lillard was hurt, but you can't control who's in front of you. You play the teams that's in front of you. And I'll just say this, and you can tell me, that I'm 100% right because I think you'll agree. If Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt in Game 1 and the Knicks go to the NBA Finals, are you going to be upset about that? Or are you going to cheer because it's the greatest feeling in the world? You don't really care if Halliburton gets hurt or not. It doesn't take away from the Knicks getting to the finals if the best player on their team gets hurt. I think at that point you're just happy that they did it. Like it's hard to do, and you can't control injuries. So I just want to say, like, you can't control who you play. You can only play who's in front of you, and I don't think it should knock anybody down for their success.
For sure. And like, look, I agree with you. Where if my team, if Tyrese Halliburton goes down, I'm not celebrating the injury. I don't like to see stars go down. I like to see my team face a team fully healthy and be like, we earned it, right?
Yeah,
And then get to the promised land. But regardless, if my team still won, beat the Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton, I'm still celebrating at the end. Like
yeah,
and you can't overlook the journey that it took to get there, right? And how many games you had to play and for things to like, yes, you need a little bit of luck going your way, whether that's an injury sometimes, whether that's the ball falling in, having like a Kawhi Leonard, like 6 bounces, then it drops, but you cannot dismiss the journey to get there, right? And I think that's what happens in a lot of this discourse is that, oh, well, they'll do that. I mean, people try to do that for the Knicks. It's like, dude, we're going to be up 3-1 with Tatum healthy or not. All right. We were going to be up 10 with like, under 3 minutes to go. Like, can we really say how much it's going to pan out?
hmm
Like, you still got to give respect to the Knicks that, look, the Celtics blew 20-point leads. Everyone's like, Knicks were down. How were they able to come back? Well, it's like, shouldn't we talk about the Celtics and how they weren't serious enough to respect the Knicks and they allowed twice, not once, twice on their own home court to come back from a 20-point deficit and win? Like, and that's where it's funny where since I live out here and I hear a lot of Celtics fans talking about it. Oh, well, the Knicks didn't really do much. It was like the Celtics blowing it. I'm like, well, I've watched a lot of NBA. There's a lot of teams that essentially hand a win to a team and a team can't figure out how to close, right? We've seen that multiple times every season. And for the Knicks to figure out how to do that, you got to give them credit. And they did it. They earned it. They won. And just getting back to your point, you got to accept the journey. You got to accept how they get there, whether it's getting to the second round. They haven't been to the second round in a long time, whether it be to conference finals, if they have not been to a conference finals, whether it be an NBA finals. You just got to accept the journey, man. And so I don't expect that to happen, though. I do want to see these teams face off being fully healthy because, look, man, last season it was us. And look, we're going to Knicks fans, and look, even if you read every article, Knicks were decimated. And yes, you got to take that into account. You got to take into account that they weren't fully healthy. They didn't miss guys going to the postseason, but there's an edge to this team saying, look, it may not be the same team as last year, but you still got Jalen Brunson, you still got Josh Hart, you still got OG Anunoby, you got Miles McBride, Mitchell Robinson. Those guys still feel a certain type of way in that they want to prove something. Even Precious Achua, look, and I'm sure that as you mentioned, the Pacers want to prove that they got here because they're meant to be here.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they definitely feel that way too. I mean, the Knicks, they're a really good team, and I told you I predicted. I thought they were going to beat the Pistons in four. I was shocked
Yeah, you said
that
that to me.
Detroit.
I was like, I appreciate the love.
I was just shocked that Detroit was able to push it to 6 games. Like I understand Detroit has been better defensively, but like Dennis Schroeder, the way he impacted that game was just really
It
fascinating to
was
me.
insane.
Like or that series, like he was just unbelievable. And Tobias Harris kind of like came out of nowhere with what he was doing. And so anyway, I mean, yeah, that series could have gone a different way if they call that foul for Tim Hardaway Jr. in the corner. I was glad they didn't call it. I didn't think it should have been called personally. I just think at that point, just let him play on. But regardless, I was shocked. And I was like, man, what am I supposed to think of this Knicks team, right? Because I thought the Pistons were like just kind of like happy to be at six. Like I was like, yeah, they're a fun rising team, but how good are they actually?
Hmm.
For the Knicks to kind of struggle against them in a 6 game series, I was like, man, what do I think of the Knicks? It's like, man, I think Boston's probably going to win this in 4 or 5. Like I just felt that way because of how they didn't play well against Detroit, in my personal opinion. Like they had moments, but like they never put together like this massive game or like stretches of like 2 or 3 games where they played great basketball. And I'm like, I don't know what to think of them. And then all of a sudden they have two 20-point comebacks against Boston. I'm like, oh crap, these this might actually be Pacers Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like we might actually get there. And I know some people still believe that the Celtics could have came back from down 3-1 and won that series if Tatum hadn't got hurt. It doesn't really matter. The Knicks earned it. The Pacers earned it, and they're both here, ready to prove that they belong. And look, both teams are hungry to get back to the NBA Finals.
Hmm.
99 for the Knicks, 2000 for the Pacers. It's 25 and 26 years apart for these two teams, and they're someone's going to get there, which is great, which we're going to see history. But it's just the fact that these two teams once again are meeting. It's incredible, and I'm sure as a Knicks fan, you just gotta hate the fact that it's on TNT this year
Oh
with
my
Reggie
God.
Miller calling all 7 games. I mean, I would hate it if I were a Knicks fan, but I won't lie. Watching last year on ESPN, the Spike Lee Stephen A. Smith show, that entire Game 7, that was hard to watch. Even though the Pacers just could not miss a shot. Like even at halftime, they're talking about OG Anunoby and not talking about the Pacers. But I just feel like as a Knicks fan, you're gonna have to like just really get through. It's gonna feel even sweeter if you beat the Pacers with Reggie Miller on the call.
You know, first and foremost, we do not claim Stephen A. Smith, okay? That man
I
for
keep hearing
or
that, but he claims you
Screaming A
guys.
himself. Look, man. I mean, this guy does he even really watch the games? I mean, I know he shows up. I know he's from New York. I'm sure. Look, no one's gonna say he wasn't growing up a Knicks fan and stuff like this, but the man talks about players who aren't even on the team anymore. And it's like, dude, do you even watch? Like, I know they paid you a lot of money to cover a lot of sports, a lot of topics, but if this is your team, man, at least tune in to like one team that you know about. And I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of the stuff where he brings up topics about how he feels about the team, it just doesn't feel that he's watched every single game and that he's in the trenches like how you are for the Pacers or how I am for the Knicks. And it's just like a lot of it gets lost. And when you're looking for him to be an advocate for this team, Kendrick Perkins did a better job than he's ever done all last season, talking about the Knicks and we're giving respect to the Knicks than Stephen A has ever done. So we don't claim him. All right. So screaming A, if you want to get back, it's gonna be a lot of. It's gonna be a steep climb, man. If you want to be in the good graces of Knicks fans, but to get to your point on TNT having Reggie Miller on call, look, I actually didn't think he was that bad against that series. Whenever he was calling the Knicks Celtics game, it's gonna be different now. Obviously,
It
this is
is,
his team.
yes.
It's gonna be. There's gonna be some calls and be like, word, like there's gonna be some foul calls that he's gonna debate like in the favor of the Pacers. I'm like, all right, man, stop the glazing. Just stop the glazing. And I just have to, you know, thankfully we got CK who does play by play. So I may just be switching over to, you know, my own guy, just tapping in, see what he's doing. But
Yeah.
it's gonna be tough, man. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I mean, at least you guys have that option, right? If you don't want to hear the national broadcast, you guys can tune in here and listen to the broadcast here. Is that on playback?
No, it's not playback. It's through our own YouTube channel.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's other ways you can watch the games without watching the actual national broadcast, but yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun just because of the storied history with Reggie and like the '90s and the Knicks and whatnot. Now it'd be really funny if they got one of the Knicks, from the '90s that's sitting there courtside to join Reggie on the broadcast just for like 5 minutes. That would be fun if we got to see a little bit of back and forth, But now we get Draymond Green for pregame stuff and in between stuff for that Eastern Conference Finals. He's going to be in New York. I don't know if you saw that or not for games 1 and 2. So I don't really think TNT really needs to add Draymond to their table, but it seems like they like to do that whenever he's not playing. So,
Well, he
uh,
wants to talk about Karl Anthony Towns, so
yeah, which I'm sure you guys can't stand him for that. So, and I don't think he likes Nemhard either. So I don't know if he'll have anything nice to say about either team.
I don't think he'll have anything insightful to say regardless. So this is going to
Yeah,
be outside of Reggie Miller, who I'm sure you're thrilled about. There's not really much, on my end that I have look forward to. So while I do have CK, our guy CK, on my iPad as I'm watching the game, it's going to be dialed up even more. So, so
yeah.
that's how it's going to go, man. But salute to Nick Station. Thank you all for tuning in for another game preview. We're previewing game one of the New York Knicks facing off against the Indiana Pacers this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Thankfully, they gave us a little bit more time so we don't have to just run home, especially for me, to just like turn on the TV and just get locked in, get a little bit more of a break as I get to ease into watching the game. So make sure to be ready for that. We're going to have play-by-play, post-game, all of that. We're going to have the watch party as usual at Slate. So make sure to be ready to go to Slate on Wednesday to go join the Orange and Blue faithful for the Knicks, not the Mets, the Knicks. I am a Yankees fan. So make sure to go be ready to go over there on Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m. to go join everybody. Doors open. Make sure to go get your drink swag on. Be happy. It's going to be a good time, man. It's going to be a good time. Root for the Knicks to go up against the Indiana Pacers. All right. Let's get back to this with my guy, Alex Golden, who covers the Indiana Pacers for Setting the Pace podcast. Look, so I know we talked about the storylines, the big storylines about these two teams coming into this matchup and meeting once again. But it feels like this time around, man, that it's just different how these two teams have been playing, not only during from last season, but during the regular season, right? As I mentioned earlier, the Pacers are playing better defense. Knicks are playing better defense. This team has been middling at best during the regular season. Offense has taken a drop from January. Now after Game 6 against the Celtics, it's bounced around. It's bounced back. What are your key? What are you looking out for in this series as a whole, from like what both teams can do well or won't do well?
Well, we'll start with the positive here. I mean, I just think that with Indiana, Tyrese Halliburton is healthier than he was last season.
Mm.
I think that you can kind of tell like he just wasn't fully himself once coming back from that injury. And so you got him fully healthy, and the Knicks are fully healthy. I think that both teams being healthy just makes it really interesting. And then of course you got the new additions to the Knicks with Towns and Bridges and OG healthy, without Hartenstein, no DiVincenzo, and then of course this guy had a small role in the series, but still a role. Alec Burks off the bench had some moments for the Knicks in this series last year. People might forget about that, but I believe it was game 3 or game 4. The Knicks were kind of struggling, and he came in and had some, like I think a 20-point game in Indianapolis. So it felt like everything he shot was going in. So I'll just put it this way: I think that the thing that I'm most interested in seeing positively from the Pacers is how they can push and play their pace against the Knicks, and does it wear them down? Because this series is kind of designed for Indiana to maybe have the upper hand with that, because it's an every other day kind of series. So the Knicks won't have 2 days in between to kind of catch their breath a little bit and whatnot. And if the Pacers play this fast pace and the Knicks do play their starting five 40 plus minutes each, will it wear them out? I know that's an over talk point, but it is, I think, very important for the Pacers because they do have this thing called the wear down effect, where they feel like they can just keep their starters a little bit fresher because they're more confident in their bench and what their bench can do. So I think if Indiana can win those minutes, or at least stay even in those minutes when their bench players do come in, and it'll be interesting to see how they stagger them. I think that's going to play a big factor. But for New York, I think the big positive for them is they're going to probably put a lot of pressure on the Pacers to potentially make a change defensively first. And I think what we saw in the regular season, it was Rick Carlisle deciding, I'm putting my center on Karl Anthony Towns. We've seen a lot of other teams put a center on Josh Hart and then play another wing defender on Towns to try to make things a little bit different. But we saw in the 2 games Miles Turner did play, he did guard Towns. And then in the last game when Towns had 40, he was being guarded primarily by Thomas Bryant and Obi Toppin. We never once saw Pascal Siakam on him either. So the Pacers strictly chose to put their fives on him, and I felt like Karl Towns just had his way. And so it'll be really interesting to see, because Miles Turner is probably playing the best basketball I've ever seen Miles Turner play in his career at this point. So I'll be interested to see how he does matching up with Karl Towns. We saw him guard Victor Wembanyama in their little Paris game that they played back-to-back games against the Spurs, and he is guarding Victor Wembanyama like 94 feet. He was pressing him at one point. Miles Turner was doing this, and so I was a little bit shocked. But with him guarding Towns, I think this could be interesting. And if Towns gets going offensively, will the Pacers end up making that switch to put Miles on Josh Hart, then move Neesmith over to Carl Towns, and then put Nimhard on Brunson? I think there's a lot of different ways there's matchups can be had here, but I think that's what is most interesting to me for the Knicks positively is just how does Towns impact this series?
Mm. Those are two great points, especially when it comes to transition and Karl Anthony Towns. So I want to talk about transition for a bit because looking at the numbers here on cleaning the glass, you know, Pacers rank they rank actually 10th when it comes to points per possession according to Clean the Glass when scoring in transition. And then the Knicks are fifth in points per possession when it comes to scoring in transition. But when you start to look at like go deeper in off live rebounds, which is where the Pacers really thrive, Pacers are number five in that. Knicks are 24th. Like Knicks do a good job once they get steals and getting out in transition and scoring. So biggest thing that they're going to have to try to do is just force turnovers on Indiana. And then when it comes to defending the Pacers, the Knicks are okay when it comes to defending in transition. They're not the greatest. Right now, they're currently ranked 12th according to Cleaning the Glass. But the thing is that they don't really see the frequency enough when it comes off of live rebounds. And so they didn't get to play Indiana much during the regular season. And it's different from what Boston likes to do and what Detroit can do and how good and effective those teams are, right? Boston really like they can get out in transition, but they like to set up the half court and just put up a lot of threes, man. I mean, you
Yeah.
don't put up 63s the way they do by going out and just running in and chucking up shots. That's not a healthy diet for them. And so the Knicks had the opportunity and what they like to do, which is just grind it out. Indiana, when you talk about moving fast, and the fact that the Knicks haven't seen a team really play at that type of pace, there is a concern with that. It is a track meet, and when you talk about depth, like we were just talking behind backstage, you did a whole ranking of your 11 your 11 players with three other dudes. So there's four of you talking about, hey, where do we rank all these guys? And I'm like, that's 11 guys. We right now we're working with seven.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Tim likes to play the starting five a lot of minutes, and then Mitch and McBride start to fill in where need be. Probably see a little campaign here or there, but well, it will be completely different. And do I think the guys will be conditioned enough? Sure, but there is a little concern where when you have bodies that can just go in there and just continue to fly up and down the court, that's exhausting. And those guys are playing fresh, while our guys are going to be, slugging it through.
Yeah, and one thing about the Knicks is they will not play zone defense. I mean, I think I was listening
No.
to a podcast earlier. They maybe played like a 1-3-1 against an out of bounds play one time in the postseason, and that's it. And so we've seen both the Cavs and the Bucks play zone defense to try and slow down the Pacers' pace. Because if they can force them to like take a little bit longer to get into their offense, it can be problematic. And that's the reason the Cavs ended up winning game three was because they did put Mobley at the top of that 3-2 zone. And Indiana was just kind of like, I haven't really seen this before. What are we supposed to do? They come out in game four, completely just destroy that zone with a little bit of schematics there from Rick Carlisle and his coaching staff. So that was really impressive. But you talk about the pace that the Pacers play and how quick they play. One thing that people think about is like the north and south part of the Pacers offense. Like, oh, they're just going to get it and run a transition. But this team plays so much east and west too in the half court. They spread the floor out and they constantly have people moving. It's not just oh, we're gonna pick and roll isolation all the time, which they do at times. But when there's too many isolation plays, you'll see Rick Carlisle call a quick timeout and try to get them into more of a passing offense. He likes to see more of like a motion type of offense where you're going to get guys moving, left and right or east and west instead of just north and south because that's going to make guys like Towns and Brunson have to guard more areas on the court than just kind of standing stationary with whoever they're guarding, or if they're involved in a pick and roll, how are they going to recover on this? How are they going to fall into drop coverage? Are they going to come up and blitz the screen, that kind of thing? Are they going to scream, switch, things like that? I just feel like with Indiana's offensive abilities, like they're not a great rebounding team. The Pacers are a very bad rebounding team. I think they were close to 29th in the league this year in their rebounding. And other teams have been able to get offensive rebounds against them. They were not very good against the Cavaliers on the glass, but it did not matter that much in this series. Obviously, they still won 4 games to 1. But what they've been saying at practice over and over and over again, and this is even before they knew the outcome of Knicks Celtics, both teams are going to kill us on the glass if we do not prioritize getting on the glass. So I think that is going to play a factor in this series, and I think it's going to matter in transition because we know Josh Hart is just a demon on the offensive boards. I mean, that guy will crash on anybody, right? Like this is a guy that can really make up for his lack of 3-point shooting, things like that at times. So I just feel like with the way these teams play, when you're looking at the way they move in transition, I think the Pacers might have the upper hand with pushing the ball and playing with a faster pace, and they don't turn the ball over a lot, and they have multiple ball handlers out there at all times. I think that the Knicks, though, if they can really hurt Indiana on the glass, it's going to keep Indiana from running their pace and getting out of transition.
For sure. And that's where somebody like Karl Anthony Towns comes in. He's a solid rebounder for this team. Man's averaging a double double, which he's done throughout most, if not all, of his career. And when you brought up Towns as like the guy who, I don't have him as I don't have him. Do I actually have him? I think he actually is my key matchup. So I'm glad that we actually brought this up. He is my key matchup for this series because it's him versus Turner. And the way that I look at it is that he and you said it earlier on during the season that Karl Anthony Towns has pretty much dominated every matchup against Miles Turner. And when you pull up the numbers, I'm going here through StatMuse. Cat has averaged 29 points, 12 boards, close to 3 assists in the 11 games versus Miles Turner in his entire career. And then Turner, conversely, has averaged 14 points, 5 boards, and uh, all over 2 blocks in the 11 games against Towns. They're both two different players. Obviously, Turner being a little bit more well-rounded than Towns, right? Towns is strictly offensively focused, but when I think of what Towns has to do in this matchup, it's not necessarily it is partially offensively because throughout the last 2 series, he hasn't really been the guy that you traded for. We haven't seen a lot of threes been put up except for like the last 1 to 2 games against Boston. Not even a lot during against Detroit. He had really his best games against the 3 and 4 against Detroit. Fine game 6 against Boston. Didn't play well for 5 games. He played okay, but for a guy of his caliber, for his salary, you expect him to play better. And the thing that I look at in this series is yes, he has to put up the points, but how are you working that pick and roll with Miles Turner? Like, how are you going to guard that? That's going to be interesting. He's not a guy that is quick-footed. He's not a guy that can move laterally that well. And so when I think of what Halliburton and Turner do, he's going to be a big guy that, they're going to try out the starting five. Mitch is not going to be playing 30 minutes. How do you stop that when you have Karl Anthony Towns out there? That's my big thing when I think defensively, what are the Knicks going to do?
So you're talking about what the Knicks are going to do defensively with Towns at the 5 and the pick and roll, or what the Pacers are going to do defensively
Well,
with
I
Towns at
no
the
no
5?
no. What are the Knicks going to do with Towns defensively against Miles Turner and Halliburton? Because I know they should try to go back to the pick and roll in this series because the Knicks haven't really utilized the Brunson Cat pick and roll. But you know, Pacers are a very good pick and roll team with Halliburton and Turner. So I'm curious how that's going to work for Cat because he has to defend that, and he's not a guy who works well in drop. And then, as I said, you can slip through and just get easy points. And so I'm more so worried for Turner, who's been playing very well this season. How does Towns match up with him defensively?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. I think it's probably one of the biggest, a point of attacks for the Pacers to try to get Towns in foul trouble because of what he can do offensively. This might be a way to kind of get him uncomfortable, and that's why I said, playing East and West is going to be more difficult for a guy like Towns and even Brunson at times, just because there's more areas to guard, right? And it's not just as stationary as we've seen with other teams that the Knicks have played. I think probably your best bet is just a straight up switch. I think that if you try to blitz Tyrese Halliburton, he sees the floor too well. You're going to get a lot of open looks for the Pacers, and they've been shooting the ball ridiculous. I mean, Andrew Nembhard shooting like 50, 50, and 88. Nembhard or Neesmith shooting like 52, 48, and 87. So, like, and Turner, I think he's like right up there too with like a high true shooting percentage. I think they're like 3 of the top 5 right now in true shooting percentage in the playoffs. So, like, they've just been making a lot of their open looks, and they're getting a lot of open looks because of the ball movement and the defensive coverages. So I think that if you do run a pick and pop or pick and roll with Turner and Halliburton and Towns as the primary defender on Turner, the best option is, okay, how can I try to make Tyrese score on Towns? Is Tyrese going to be someone that tries to blow by him? I think if there's a clear lane, he might try that at times. We've seen it, but a lot of times Tyrese likes to do that little step back 3-point shot. And so he might, revert to that to try to get a three over Towns and get that little step back, which he might hit. We've seen him do it against Jared Allen and other bigs for the Bucks. But I think that might be your best bet, just because when Tyrese is a scorer, I think that's the lesser version of himself. I think he's better as a facilitator, and so he might even look to try to see what kind of switch he can get. Like if he gets Bridges switched on to Turner, and Turner goes down to the post, Turner has been really really good at that short roll and even the soft touch around the rim. So I just think for Towns though specifically, if you do too much hedging or you do too much double teaming, Halliburton's going to read that too quick, and I think it's going to lead to open looks. So you don't want to get yourself caught trying to scram switch and everything like that, because it's just going to get more chaotic for the Knicks defense. I think that just a straight up switch is the best way to go, and live with whatever shot Halliburton takes. But if you do have to kind of like show a couple, try to double team him at times, we've seen a lot of teams actually try to face guard Halliburton before he gets the ball. So he's not involved really in any on ball actions. And this is where you kind of see Andrew Nimhart involved. But Andrew Nimhart and Miles Turner have also been incredible in the pick and roll in the postseason as well. So I think that Nimhart might be a little bit more willing to take Towns off the dribble if they do get that switch and try to create some contact. I mean, there's a play if you go watch game one of Pacers Bucks where Andrew Nimhart just puts his little shoulder into Brook Lopez, and Brook Lopez goes flying back like 5 or 6 feet, and that's a big guy right there. So Andrew Nimhart has that kind of ability, and I think he could knock Towns off his feet and score on him. I feel so like Towns got so frustrated in Game 5 against the Celtics. He made some really stupid fouls. Would not be surprised if he gets frustrated and a little bit flustered against the Pacers offense and what they're doing to him, where he does just commit dumb fouls out of frustration. And I think that might be a good game plan for Indiana. That might be their best defense that can play on him.
Yeah, and this is where I look at Mitchell Robinson as being that guy to really help Karl Anthony Towns, and that's where I'm looking at the double big lineup because Mitchell Robinson, much better defender. I mean, hell, I'm sure that clip has been making its rounds throughout all of Twitter how Mitch guarded every single Celtic in that one play and then got the steal off of Jalen Brown in the right corner, or for the Celtics the left corner, but. That's where I'm looking at Mitchell Robinson because you talked about rebounding being a critical issue in this thing. And then when I look at rebounding, I think about offensive rebounds for the Knicks. And just to stop the Pacers from getting out in transition, Knicks need to generate second chance opportunities if they're missing shots. And when I look at Mitchell Robinson, what he's done in this postseason right now, he is right now, and if you're looking at totals, he is second in offensive rebounding right now. Aaron
Mhm.
Gordon leads the postseason with 14 games played with 50 offensive rebounds. Mitchell Robinson in two less games and like damn near half the minutes of what Aaron Gordon has done has got average his not average but has accumulated 45 offensive boards. That's just how impactful he is, and he's averaging about 18 minutes per game. And so I need a heavy dose of Mitchell Robinson. He's going to be the key guy in helping Karl Anthony Towns not get in foul trouble, guarding Miles Turner, and preventing that pick and roll because he's very good in pick and roll coverage. He can guard the perimeter. And then when I'm thinking about grabbing boards and how tough he is, he's just taken his game to another level. Even though he's missed so much time, he's not the same Mitchell Robinson when he entered the league, just high flying, can touch the ceiling of Madison Square Garden and will block 8 shots. But he is stronger. He's moving very well. Quite honestly, I'm used to him just like hitting the deck multiple times a game. I'm like, oh my God, is this going to be the time? And he's been pretty sturdy. So I think if for to cure the town's frustration in guarding Turner, you need to have a heavy dose of Mitchell Robinson out there to one stop whatever the Pacers are trying to do offensively, and then just give the Knicks a chance by if the Pacers are missing shots, Mitch is a great rebounder there. If you're missing shots, you're gonna need second chance opportunities, and you can't let the Pistons just get out and go flying. So I'm looking at Mitchell Robinson, man, to help this defense.
Yeah, I think he's really interesting because we didn't see a whole lot of him last year in the playoff series. I think he might have went out after game two, maybe before game two. I can't remember. We did see him in game one. Aaron Nesmith had that big dunk on him that kind of came out of nowhere. The Pacers have just shared some highlights on their Twitter account. And I was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that dunk because it really didn't matter because the Pacers lost that game. But that was the same game Obi did the between the legs and the fast break in the Garden. So, but yeah, I'm really interested to see how Mitchell Robinson does play in this and how the Pacers try to counter it because I'll be surprised, with the second unit the Pacers run. If Mitchell Robinson doesn't start right away and he just plays off the bench, do the Pacers try to match up his minutes with Thomas Bryant? And Thomas Bryant, man, it's been a roller coaster of a ride with Thomas Bryant as the backup five because he kind of can be clumsy at times and whatnot, but then he also has like these moments where he just does some stuff that you're just like, how is Thomas Bryant doing this? Like in Game Five against the Cavs, he had 9 points in that third quarter and went on this little mini run. He led a fast break. He went coast to coast like Thomas Bryant did in a playoff game. So I think that it's just kind of like, okay, how does he match up with Mitchell Robinson? And then do they potentially play Obi at the small ball five to try to pull
Mhm.
Robinson away from the rim? And because Obi can shoot the ball very well from three, he's been a lights out shooter for the Pacers since he's gotten here, and he's been playing more frequently, coming in early for Pascal, playing more with the starters, so he does get more minutes with Tyrese. So I'll be interested to see how they utilize that. But also, like if you're going to play Robinson with Towns a little bit more in crunch time and Turner's out there, I kind of wonder if it does benefit Miles to not have to guard someone as talented as Towns at the five spot, where he can be a little bit more of a rim protector with Mitchell Robinson there in the game. So I don't know if it does benefit the Knicks more to have Robinson in there for like what it causes the Pacers to do. I think it might make things a little bit more simpler for Miles, but I do understand your point because he's been very impactful so far in this postseason, and I just wonder if you give him too many minutes and too much time, does it end up not having that big of a deal? And let's be honest, we saw it happen against the Celtics. We saw Hack and Mitch be a thing. If the Pacers feel like they have to do that, don't be surprised. Rick Carlisle is not, someone that would not he wouldn't be afraid to pull the Hack of Mitch if he feels like he needs to do that to try to play the possession game and the point game. Because if the Knicks are just scoring at ease and you can go get one or two free throws from Robinson, potentially play him off the floor, that's another advantage maybe for the Pacers if they feel like he's that much of a problem.
As my guy Mitch would say, I'm knocking him down. I'm knocking things down. I believe in him, man. He went 6 of 6 in Game 5 against the Celtics. I'm like, all right, man. I'm believing in you. He changed up the free throw shooting mechanics a little bit. The stance. I'm like, all right, man. I believe in you. He went 1 or 2 in Game 6. I believe in Mitch. So, Rick Carlisle, I dare you. I dare you, man, to do hack a Mitch. But look, I think this is the one thing. Before we go on to the next topic, which is just getting down to the other I think key matchup in this game. Um, the thing where I look at the double big lineup is that it might make it simpler for the Pacers, but I think it also makes it difficult for the Pacers because who's now the guy guarding Karl Anthony Towns? Because he could just shoot over guys, and that's probably the biggest difficulty. Where when I look at the Pacers, I don't really see anybody. Maybe Siakam would probably guard him, and he's a good defender.
I don't
Unless
know. I think they'll keep Siakam on OG. They kind of have.
okay, so if that's the case, then
I think they
then
put Neesmith on him. I feel like Neesmith is
interesting.
so. Aaron Neesmith guarded Giannis for quite a few possessions in that series against the Bucks. And look, nobody's stopping Giannis. Pacers were sending like three guys at him because he's like starting with the ball, bringing it up the court. I don't really think Towns is going to have the same impact as Giannis as like an on-ball creator, but he can create for himself and he can shoot in the post. But when you see other wings go out there and guard him, I feel like Aaron's going to give you more of a defensive, physical presence than maybe some of the other wings you've seen that have guarded Towns throughout the playoffs. So I don't love it, but I do understand. Like he is short. He's only 6'5", so like he could shoot over him, right? But I think it does just throw a different wrinkle out there in terms of that matchup, just to make Towns think a little bit. And I don't think you would really want to put Nimhard on him, obviously, or Tyrese. So like, what's the other option? You have to go with probably Aaron Nesmith because the Pacers are not gonna go very much bigger. Now, there is maybe they could throw Jarris Walker on there for like a minute or two, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they just trust Nesmith. He's got good instincts and he's a very physical player. I would say that Nimhard's probably a more skilled defender, where Nesmith is more of just like grit and get in your grill. But I think a lot of people are kind of expecting Nesmith to guard Brunson. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Brunson cooked Nesmith in the regular season. I think they're going to try Nimhard on him once again and see how that plays out. Because it was a good point that was brought up when Brunson started struggling some with Neesmith. It was also the same time he was dealing with that foot injury. It
Mhm.
wasn't like, and then you also lost OG as well once that switch happened. So I think there was factors that played into it aside from just Nimard being the primary guy. But I do think that Neesmith would get that draw matchup wise. Unless they wanted to try OG with Siakam on Towns, I don't really think you want Siakam if you're Indiana in any kind of screens because he can get hung up on screens bad sometimes and not be a great screen navigator. So I feel like to me Neesmith would be the number one option if they're not going to put Turner on him.
Mm. So here's the one thing. So, and then I seriously want to move on to the next topic. Is that physically, like Towns had to go against Tobias Harris, who was guarding him pretty well in that first round series. He had Tatum on him and for stretches. Jaylen Brown, not necessarily an issue just because of how much shorter he is than Tatum, but he has had to go against some physical defenders. I don't really like. Maybe I haven't seen Naismith in a minute since haven't played much this season, but my thing for Towns is that this is a guy that you can actually just shoot over. So
Mm.
that's where I really think his 3-point shooting will come into effect here. That if you're going to put Naismith on him, then this is a guy that you just got to shoot over, back him down. Now, Naismith will give some resistance. I'm not saying he's not going to give some resistance, but I don't think he's going to be that true, like, imposing guy like a Dylan Brooks that's going to be like try to get up under you and really just throw you off your balance. You th- is, is
I think he's more like Dylan Brooks than you realize.
is he?
He's just not dirty. Like Dylan Brooks
Oh,
doesn't have the
wow,
reputation
interesting.
yet because Neesmith, he's such a nice guy. But I will say this: like, don't be shocked if the Pacers do send some help if they do want to put Towns in the post. Like, how much will Turner help out there and they leave Mitch open, right? Like that's kind of another option. Like, okay, can Towns make that pass to Mitch where a lob's thrown? Like, how often is he going to do that? Where you just kind of like throw looks to kind of make Towns have to work if that is the matchup that's out there. I know Halliburton has been very good at help defense as well this year, but if he's out there guarding Mikal or whoever else is out there in this lineup we're talking about, you don't want to leave Mikal open for three, and so that's going to be more difficult. But it just depends on what angles you have and where Towns is catching the ball at. I don't think they would just leave Aaron on an island by himself. If that were the case, or if he tries to post him up, I think they would try to send some help and rotate, basically just leave Mitch open and try to make sure everybody else is covered.
And so okay, all right, this is gonna be interesting, man. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to how because I feel like Cat is going to be the determining factor as always in this series. But another guy that I'm looking at, and this is where I was confused with my key matchup because I was also thinking OG and Siakam because I feel like that's going to be an interesting matchup just for they both know each other very well. I mean, obviously they both grown, developed outside of being on the Raptors together, but OG guarding Siakam, Siakam guarding OG. We need OG to get into a good shooting rhythm to really open stuff up for the team. Siakam is a really good defender. And I'm wondering if OG will be thrown off his game a little bit and try to do a little bit more creation. Not that he can't do some, but I hope they doesn't rely too much on it, where he's just more impactful as a cutter, a guy who can drive, and a guy who just knocks down three. Very not I don't want to use the word limited because he has shown a little bit more this season, but very basic in what he does to get to be effective. Like it's very basic stuff. It's like fundamentals, just very fundamental in what he does. And so I wonder how that match is going to look because if he's not shooting in rhythm, then you need a lot more out of Bridges and somebody else. And in the last series, and in even against Detroit, Knicks have won when you get 20 points out of both OG and Bridges, and then 25 plus from Cat, 30 from Brunson. And so that's why like OG's got to be in rhythm. I'm looking at that Siakam OG matchup too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I'm trying to figure out what is the usual rotation for OG in terms of like when he comes out of the game, when does he, go to the bench, when does he come back in? Is there like kind of a set rotation usually for how Tibbs brings in the two or three bench guys that he does play, or is it kind of just like depending on who's out there?
Typically OG. So he's going to obviously be out there with the starting five. Then it goes to the I'll have either one or my two wings out there while giving one of them a break for a short amount of for limited time, and then bring the other one back out there. So it
Okay.
goes, it mixes and matches. So it could be, typically it's Bridges with Cat in that first like stint. So you bring in Campaign, McBride, you'll have Bridges out there with Cat, and then you'll have Robinson there too. But
Okay.
then sometimes it'll be a quick switch and you bring OG back in. And so it just it depends on the flow of the game, but that's typically how it starts off with. And then third quarter you'll see the entire starting unit unless things go truly south. But truly south for Tibbs is like I don't even know what catastrophic it is for him this point. He'll rely on the stars for out most of the third quarter.
Yeah, I'm just kind of fascinated by it because we've seen Carlisle match minutes when it comes to Dame, when it came to Donovan Mitchell. Andrew Nemhard matched every single one of those minutes on the floor unless he was in foul trouble. I don't know if he's ever, I don't really recall him doing that for any other matchups. I've seen him do it with Turner before in the season, and it might have even been against the Knicks when Towns was going into the game when he was playing like, okay, we're never going to have our backup center out there against Towns. Like it's going to be Miles' job, primarily. So I do wonder if he feels like he has to do that with OG just to keep OG from getting going, right? Because if OG gets into the game without Siakam out there and he's going up against an Obi Toppin, right? Or even a Thomas Bryant at times. I feel like he's going to have his way with that matchup so easily. And, do you really want to get a number three or number four guy going like that, where he gets his kind of confidence going and you're not even worried about Brunson and Towns anymore at this point because you're just able to feed OG because he's so talented. And so that's where I think this is got to be Siakam. Siakam has to have a great series, in my personal opinion. I just think that if Siakam does not have a great series on both ends of the floor, it's going to be problematic for Indiana to win this series. But I feel like at times last year, especially in the first two games, I felt like OG kind of had Pascal rattled a little bit. And then they do know each other very well, so I think that does help, like tendency wise, like they know what they like and what they don't like, and how they can kind of force them doing different things. But I felt like you saw OG's athleticism just have a little bit more of an upper hand on Pascal last year in the playoff run. But now that Pascal is in better shape, he's had a whole week off. I'll be curious to see how he does handle the athleticism of an OG and an Obi. So I think it's a really fascinating matchup. I'm more so concerned about the Mikal Bridges aspect of this matchup, just because I'm curious because I've seen him play a little bit more as kind of like the primary offensive initiator when Jalen does go to the bench, and curious what players are going to be out there on the floor to guard him. Because if he starts going like that, to me makes me more nervous, and I feel like he's more involved in the screens as well. Like he's probably one of the best screen setters on the Knicks, and that pick and pop game could be pretty lethal. Where I feel like OG is not as involved in that, but I do see OG splashing threes. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to hit some. To me, I'm more concerned about Bridges and who's guarding him and how that all plays out.
That's a good thing. But before we get there, man, let me do a quick shout out to our sponsor,
Yeah.
Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. People, let me tell you something about Underdog Fantasy. I love it. I like to think I know more than what they're telling me when they're putting out their odds. But this is why I like it, man. They give you two options. You can either do the fantasy draft or you can go create a ticket. If you're creating a ticket, all you got to do is just choose anywhere between 2 to 8 players, and they could be mix and match throughout all sports. It could be NBA, MLB, hockey. And so that's the cool thing about creating that ticket, right? Now, you could stick with just the NBA or one sport. You just got to make sure you choose two players that aren't on the same team. And then once you do that and you create your ticket, all you need to do is just choose higher or lower for any stat that they give you. So let's say in this series, right? Let's say they start off with Mitchell Robinson, higher with the average of, let's say, 7.5 rebounds because he's playing limited minutes. Would you go higher or would you go lower? I would probably go higher because I think this is going to be a good matchup for him to get some more boards. So that's all you got to do. And then all you do is just go down the sheet, choose higher or lower, what you believe every single player will do based on that stat. Now, if you don't think all of your picks are going to hit, you don't have to go all in. You can do the insured route. So that way you win a little bit of cash just because, look, man, sometimes you're just not all in, man. You just don't believe, you're not feeling confident that night, but you want to earn something. So they give you the insured route if you don't feel like believing all of your picks are going to hit. Now, if you don't want to do the ticket, the other thing you can do is put on your GM cap, go draft a team, go compete with your friends or a bunch of randos, and go see who knows the league better, you or somebody else. And that's what's cool about Underdog Fantasy. They give you options to go earn some money. So make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. Once again, hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. With me on the other side is my guy, Alex Golden, aka Evil Alex when he's on this show. I'm Evil Alex when I go on his show. Make sure to tap it, man. We're giving you that breakdown for game one. But Alex just brought up a great point, man. And make sure to go support his show, Setting the Pace podcast, a Pacers podcast. Come on, we all need that, the different coverage of seeing how our opponents are looking at each other, right? But Alex brought up a great point. Mikal Bridges. What do we think about Mikal Bridges in this one? And let me tell you something, man. That's my X factor. He's my X
Yeah.
factor in the series. Because if he's rolling, I don't see anybody on that team that's really going to match up with him. And that's the funny thing is that you have guys that can match what either Brunson does or Cat does, even OG, even Josh Hart, just being an energy guy, right? And especially with the depth of the Pacers, that you have that like variety in how many ways that they can dice you up. But guarding Bridges and doing what he can do, that's tough. Maybe TJ McConnell's the closest thing you got to that, but I feel like if Mikal Bridges is doing what he did against Boston and being that clutch guy in the fourth quarter and hopefully knocking down some threes, which he didn't necessarily do a great job at in the previous matchup, I feel like this is really going to lean in the Knicks' favor. And that's my X factor, man.
Yeah, he's really good, and there's a reason why you guys paid so much to get him, right? Like all the draft picks that were put out there to acquire Bridges, it's for these moments like this. It's for the opportunity to get to an NBA championship or at least to the NBA finals and compete for a championship. So, yeah, I mean, you make these kind of moves because wings are hard to get, and you got OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges in 6 months. And like being able to do that is just an incredible way to kind of build a roster to compete in the NBA number one, but let alone the Eastern Conference, where this Knicks team was definitely built to beat Boston. Like that's kind of what their vision was. Like we got to stop Tatum and Brown. We've got two guys that can do that. Now we got a stretch big that can guard Porzingis or Horford and Towns, and they've just got Brunson versus White, and then it's just the matchup made a lot of sense when you look on paper of Celtics and Knicks. Now the Pacers they're a lot different because what I saw throughout the season was every single time these teams played, it was Mikal Bridges all over Tyrese Halliburton. And Tyrese Halliburton, I felt like the first game, absolutely terrible. 0 points in the first game of the season against the Knicks. It was second game of the year. Halliburton was just terrible and couldn't do anything offensively. But the Pacers got blown out by the Knicks, and I'm pretty sure you remember that. I might have been opening night for the Knicks at Madison Square Garden.
Mm-hmm.
Then you fast forward to the next game. Halliburton had 35 points and I think 14 assists. I mean, he was just unbelievable in that game, and he was able to get to all the spots against Bridges, and Bridges didn't really have that much of an impact defensively on him. So that to me is where I think it's going to be interesting to see how does Bridges slow down Halliburton on that one-on-one defensive matchup. Is he denying him the basketball when he doesn't bring the ball to the court? And Nimhart's kind of initiating offense in the first action for the Pacers. And then I think defensively, from what I've been listening to, there's been a little bit of different opinions on how the Pacers are going to guard the Knicks. Right, my gut feeling is they're going to keep Nimhard on Brunson to start things off. And I know Knicks fans are probably like licking their chops, thinking, "Oh yeah, just like last year, barbecue chicken." I think Nimhard's a much better defender this year than he was last year. Now that still doesn't mean that Brunson's not going to get his because Brunson's a great player and potentially the best player in the Eastern Conference so far this year is in the playoffs. So like he's been awesome. Not denying that. But when you think about how is Bridges going to be involved offensively, I think you'll probably see Aaron Nesmith get that first matchup with him defensively. And I think you'll see Halliburton on Josh Hart with Miles Turner guarding Towns and then Siakam on Anunoby. And I think that could kind of limit what Bridges does just a little bit if Aaron Nesmith is his primary defender, because Aaron Nesmith is probably the second best perimeter defender on the Pacers. So that's where that could be interesting. And I think you're going to see Halliburton play Josh Hart, be a help defender, and then obviously have to worry about the offensive rebounding of a Josh Hart and what he can do. And of course, you'll live with Josh Hart shooting from outside. You don't want to just give him clean looks, but that's the guy you want to beat you out of everybody else in the Knicks starting five. So I think that's what they're going to do to start things off. Now, if the Knicks start making some very successful offensive game plans against that set defense right there that they have. Like I mentioned earlier, you're going to see some changes, and it wouldn't shock me if they're like, all right, we're going to put Tyrese on Mikal during those 5-on-5 lineups there. And that to me could be a little bit problematic for Indiana if Halliburton's having to draw that primary matchup against Mikal Bridges. But the thing with Mikal is his catch and shoot has been so deadly at the end of games. It feels like every time I'm turning on a Knicks game in the clutch, it's Mikal Bridges hitting a clutch 3-pointer. And so that to me is where the Pacers are going to have to be glued to him and not allow him. But the Pacers have done a great job since the last 2 years, really, of not allowing teams to beat them from the 3-point line. They want to let teams beat them from inside the arc. And I think the Knicks have kind of designed their defense to do the same thing. So it's kind of like these two teams don't want other teams to beat them with a 3-point shot. So I think they're going to do a very good job of running them off the line at times. But I don't know. I think Bridges in the second unit is where I'm probably the most intrigued by how we can impact this series. You mentioned TJ McConnell might be the one guarding him. I don't know if I think that's the case. He might honestly get matched up with Benedict Mathurin in that matchup.
Oh, I didn't mention.
With
I
this
didn't
game.
mention. I didn't mean that T.J. McConnell would be guarding. I didn't mean that. I
Okay.
meant that he would be matching in the sense of like
Scoring
offensive, like
wise.
what he can do, like who can
Gotcha.
match what
Okay.
he can do scoring wise. Yes,
Okay. I was trying to figure out what you said there, so I do apologize for
it's all good. It's
misunderstanding
all good,
that.
man.
But when I look at the Pacers bench, yeah, I think Matherin's probably going to be that primary defender. And I will say Matherin's actually played pretty solid defense in the playoffs this year. He's not been known for his defense. He's not a great off-ball defender, so that does seem a little bit worrisome. But if Bridges is going to be the on-ball guy, it would not shock me if Matherin is the on-ball defender there. Now, Matherin, similar to Siakam, can get hung up in screens a little bit too frequently, and then he likes to kind of bail out for switches with bad mismatches just because he can't fight through it. Where some of the other Pacers, defenders can get a little bit skinny and slither through those screens or just fight over them. But Matherin to me has really stepped up, and I wouldn't be surprised if you even see Matherin at times on Brunson, just if there's foul trouble and things like that. I think he might be their third option behind Nemhard and Neesmith. But yeah, I do think that Matherin playing against Bridges could be interesting. And Matherin's got enough offensive game that he could make anybody really pay for what he does offensively with his ability to drive to the basket, create fouls, and even his 3-point shot has been improved this year. So I don't think that I don't think Matherin's going to be like that much of a drop off, I should say, when it comes to
Mm,
playing up against Bridges in that second unit. But it's still not going to be easy. I think Bridges just does so many different things for this team.
for sure. But let's talk about the real matchup, man. Then we can get out of here. And not saying they're going to guard each other. You
Not
know,
at all.
but you know it's going to be the showdown between Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Which
mean,
point guard? Look, man, which point guard is going to lead this team to the NBA Finals is like the biggest thing, and it's just look, we know we got the WWE gif out there flying through the clips and all not and whatnot. So I'm fascinated in how this works because as we discussed multiple times, they're so vastly different in how
oh,
things work for both of them. But they're just so interesting to watch, man, just for how they make their teams go. They're both the engines. And so it's going to be a star-studded affair between those two. You know, Halliburton getting everybody involved and scoring when he feels like it's right. Brunson, more of a scorer, but he can still facilitate. You know, what if you put the on the pendulum, who does a little bit more? That's just a little opposite. But it's going to be a show, man, and I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, there's a little bit of John, man, because I want to see these guys, talking some trash. There's got to be a little bit of like a little animosity, even though I know they're all buddy buddy and they FaceTime and they talk about each other's outfits and joke and whatnot. But I'm looking forward to that matchup, man.
well, let me just go back to the WB reference. I mean, if you're a Knicks fan, you have to probably feel pretty confident because you got a steel chair from Jalen Brunson versus some brass knuckles from Tyrese Halliburton. So, I mean, I think if I were going to bring any weapon to a fight, I think a steel chair might have a little bit more of an impact than some brass knuckles.
You get a little distance, you can start swinging that thing around. Brass knuckles got to be up close and personal.
Yeah, and I mean, let's talk about Tyrese's acting job when he hits the brass knuckles on those steel steps. I mean, Tyrese has a long way to go with the acting. Well, I won't lie there. I was not impressed with the acting, but I did think it was funny the way Jalen just casually jumped over the barricade to get that steel chair. I felt like that was a little bit better acting. And hey, I feel like Jalen Brunson's a better actor. Let's talk about the foul baiting here from Jalen Brunson. I mean, this guy knows how to get foul
Oh,
calls called for
brother.
him. It's an art. Hey, you know what? I'm not even. I'm gonna be annoyed with it by the end of game one as a
You're
Pacer
good.
fan
Am I gonna
watching
be
it.
hearing about ethical hoops from you by the end of this?
I'm not gonna really bring it up because I don't like to bring up fouls and officiating. But like Rick Carlisle said, give small markets a chance, right? So,
Mm.
if you go back to last year, he said that after game two when he felt like the foul calls were a little bit egregious. So, Rick's done a very good job of not blaming the officials at all throughout really the whole season. And he's like, he kind of made it a point of emphasis, like, I'm not going to be on the officials' case. It's going to be physical. Like, they're totally different players. I think Jalen Brunson is a tier ahead of Tyrese Halliburton right now as we're talking. I think Halliburton's game is to me more enjoyable to watch just because I like the way he passes the ball. I like the way that he gets it and moves it up and down the court. He doesn't need to be the scoring guy. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands 24/7 for this team to be successful. He's learned how to play much better without the basketball as well. Not saying Brunson hasn't. I'm just saying from Halliburton's standpoint, like he can do different things this year and I feel like the way they're just both they're so fun to watch in different ways. Like I think Jalen Brunson is incredibly fun to watch when he's not hunting fouls. Like just like when he can score on anybody one on one, and it's a joy to watch. He's a bulldog. I'm not even trying to like glaze him up here like you mentioned Reggie Miller doing for the Pacers, but I really do feel that way. I feel like he's just such a tough matchup, despite what he does to try to create stuff. Because I feel like he doesn't always need to try to create fouls to get shots off. He's just that good, and I think he might even be better if he didn't do it as much. But we'll see what happens. I just think Halliburton, his ability. See, Halliburton doesn't have to be a scorer, and I think that he's never going to be on that same level as Brunson because he's never going to really have. He might have a 30-point game throughout a series, but he's not going to like get anywhere close to 25 to 30 a game. That's just not who he is. If he has 20 and 12, like that is the perfect type of Halliburton game because his whole job is to be, like he says, the team mom and get everybody involved, make sure everybody else is taken care of. And there's a reason why Siakam is the leading scorer on this team in the playoffs at 18 and a half points. Halliburton's second with 17, Turner 16, and then both Nembhard and Nesmith around 14, 14 and a half. They are very well balanced. It is not just a one-man show where you have to, or a two-man show where you're like your two stars are kind of leading you to the promised land. It's just kind of like everybody chips in and does things. And then in the clutch, we've seen Jalen Brunson obviously hit some massive shots in the clutch, but Tyrese Halliburton has two game winners this postseason. In epic comebacks, and so I think they're both probably the most clutch players in the league right now, or at least in the Eastern Conference. And so that's going to be fascinating to watch because I feel like if any game gets close, if the other team has the ball in their hand, I think the other fans got to be worried because Tyrese or Jalen's going to make a game winner in this series. I kind of feel it.
It's look, man. I want to touch on. I agree with the crunch time, like who's gonna get that get the winning basket because the Knicks, for the most part, have been winning games by like 2, 3 points. Like it's not been massive blowouts, and I think I do agree with that. But with the whole foul baiting, man,
Oh,
like
come on. Don't stand up for your guy now. Be honest. He's a
he
foul
can.
merchant.
He's not every game, but he can. He can when he wants
Yeah.
to be. But he doesn't do it every single game. I don't think he did that. He didn't do that as much as he did in game two against Detroit. Can he? Sure. I agree with you. He doesn't need to do it. And I think he plays 10 times better when he doesn't have to do it.
Yes.
And uh does he do it? Does he know how to hunt for fouls? Sure. Tatum hunts for fouls for Christ's sakes.
Oh, yeah.
SGA hunts for fouls. All those guys do, man. And like, look, you want to slow down the game, you want to do it. That's what you got to do, man. And don't blame the guy for playing to what the rules are. Like, ask the officiating to change the rules. That's all I'm gonna say. But I don't think he does it as much as everyone likes to think he does it as. But it's out
Did
there.
you did you see that video that was going around and it said a preview of the NBA Finals and it was SGA and it was a video of SGA shooting free throws and then 5 seconds later it was Jalen Brunson shooting free throws. It made me laugh. A free throw off in the NBA Finals from the two biggest foul merchants in the league.
Foul merchants. Good lord, man. Don't be upset that your point guard doesn't know how to do it, man.
My point guard is totally different. He's a skinny guy that likes to talk trash. And yeah, I mean, last year in the
And
Garden
change
was
his voice
fun.
while he's doing it.
Hey, we're gonna talk about changing voices. You got Carl Anthony Towns on your team, so we can't even go there. Okay, like for real.
For real. Oh my God.
But his post game interview after game 6 had me dying.
Oh man. These guys,
Uh,
man, it's going to be a hell of an interesting series for many aspects. You got the storylines, you got the talent. It's going to be a good one, man. Alex, I appreciate you coming through, man, and helping preview this game. Please let the listeners know where they can find you. If you got any work up and coming, we should be on the lookout for.
yeah, I mean, we're gonna have daily content over at Setting the Pace. If you guys want to check that out, my co-host is a New York resident. Michael J. Fauci is his name. My friend Alex over here, good Alex, he calls him Dr. Fauci. He will actually be at game 1
Oh,
in the
God bless this
Garden.
man.
Now, listen, I'm going to give you guys some hope, okay? Fauci is currently on a 17-game losing streak for the Indiana Pacers,
I'll
dating back
gladly
about
buy him
six.
tickets to every single game.
So these tickets were given to him.
Oof.
So a guy that he knows, a friend of his, said that he has a chance to maybe get finals tickets too. And so he gave up the Eastern Conference Finals tickets in hopes that the Knicks would make the finals, so he'd go to that game. And he told my guy Fauci, he was like, you know what, you can go to this game. And I said, I think he sent you there on purpose. We've got listeners of our podcast saying, hey, Fauci, we got a plane ticket to Indy if you want to come to Indy on Wednesday night so you can miss the game. So yeah, I just that is my one hope for Knicks fans here. If you're worried about game 1, I think it's going to be interesting game 1, obviously, just because Pacers have not played in 8 days. So been a long layoff for them. They've usually responded pretty well this season, not playing after having a long break, but that's a long time to be waiting for a series to happen. So could there be some rust? Potentially. And then Knicks obviously just got off of a very emotional and physical series with the Celtics, but I think that they have had plenty of time to kind of focus and get recharge for the Pacers series. So it's going to be close. Did you give out your prediction, or have you already done that on a different podcast?
I did on a different pod, but I got Knicks in 6. What do you got?
I got Pacers in 6.
There we go.
So yeah,
Shocker. Shocker that you choose the Pacers and I choose the Knicks.
yeah, I know it's funny. I mean, I've heard different arguments, and I totally understand. Like, I could see the Knicks winning. It would not shock me if they won this series. For those that have said Pacers in 7, I find it hard to believe that Indiana could win back-to-back years Game 7 in the Garden.
That would be crushed if that's the case. Absolutely.
Oh, I mean, I would be crushed for you. I would be loving it as a Pacer fan, but I would feel so bad for Knicks fans, like, to just have to go through that. I just feel like a lot of the pressure is on New York. I feel like there's more pressure on the Knicks in this series to get to the finals than the Pacers. I don't know why I feel that way, but I just feel like the way that fans are so emotionally connected, like, they're just more outspoken about it, I guess you could say, than Pacer fans. It just feels like there's so much more pressure on New York than there is Indiana, especially if it gets to a game 7. Like, just imagine the amount of pressure you would feel. Like, how nervous were you about game 6? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you about game 7. The one thing I will say is that I feel like there's pressure on Indiana too. Like, I think the pressure is that you made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. You lost Tyrese Halliburton. You probably say that, hey, we were pretty close to competing with the Celtics prior to even Halliburton going down. You could talk about game 1 where if he doesn't have that terrible turnover, you guys are talking about taking game 1 in Boston, right?
Oh yeah, they should have won game 1 in Boston.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Timeout. Should have fouled Jaylen Brown, not give him a 3. Yeah, don't remind me, that sucked. But
yeah,
even Nembhard was great in games 3 and games 4. Without Halliburton, like, Nembhard was unbelievable.
And it was close, right? But I'm saying if you add that plus Halliburton, there's got to be some pressure there for you too, saying, hey, we were really close last year. We competed with the Celtics. If it wasn't for our injuries, we could talk about putting the asterisk next to the Celtics. Hey, if you didn't have to face like an injured Heat team, Cavs team, Pacers team, Knicks didn't get injured, who are we even talking about how you guys are getting that banner? And this is just, because I know Celtics fans are out there like, well, you didn't lose Tatum, blah, 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 blah. Be quiet. So, look,
I don't like it when it's on your end.
Huh?
See, Knicks fans don't like it when they're on the other end of it.
But look, I think there's pressure for both teams. I think Pacers got to prove that they're meant to be there and they can get to that next round. And I think for the Knicks, if you want to talk pressure for us, it's like, even though I know he's been getting a lot of heat, Windhorst comes out here saying second best roster in the East, outside of the Celtics. Obviously, we were third best team, and we're still like, they're back. They're next to each other. We're talking about third, fourth teams in the conference respectively.
Yeah.
So is there that much of a drop off as in who can go there? Like, talent-wise or like skill-wise, team-wise. No, in my opinion, but I think both teams have equal amount of pressure. But the pressure will definitely be on New York if it is a Game 7 back in Madison Square Garden. I mean, you have home court. You gotta, you'd have to go through with it and punch your ticket. It'll be interesting, man. This series is gonna be. It's going to be fun. The emotions are really going to be riding through this one for both teams, because I think while both teams should try to play loose, there's going to be these guys will be playing intense, man, because there's a lot riding for each team. But Alex, I appreciate you coming through as always, man. Appreciate you talking it up. If you, as Alex said, make sure to go give him a follow on X. All right, make sure to go check out his podcast, Setting the Pace. He does a great job covering the Pacers. He's credentialed, so he gets to talk to these guys on the regular. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boy. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. Salute to all the mods. Salute to Knicks Nation. Salute to all the franchise channel members. You already know what the deal is. During the game, we're going to have play-by-play. Afterwards, you're going to have post-game. We got you covered. Make sure to go to Slate, 5:30, where the door's going to be open. Time might be adjusted, but I'm going to tell you 5:30 right now. That's typically what the time has been, so make sure to be ready. Be at Slate. Go get your drink swag on. Support the Knicks as they face the Indiana Pacers. It's going to be a good one. Appreciate you once again, Alex. All right, everyone. We'll catch you later. We out.